Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Friday. We've got a great segment for you all today. We're going to be discussing how to rewire your brain. And I've got a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza's notes. I love Dr. Joe Dispenza. I've been following him for many years, and he has tremendously helped me in a very profound way. So we're going to be discussing a lot of his notes on how to rewire your brain. Now, the main challenge with addictions is you have to think greater than you feel. I love one of his quotes. He says it best. If you don't have a vision of the future, you will be defined by memories of the past. Now, what does that mean? You need a vision for the future. Otherwise, you're going to be defined by memories of the past. Now, we have to live in the present moment, but at the same time, we have to anticipate things from the future, and our past will ultimately define us. So you have to always make the right decision with what you're doing. Now, this is worthy of a conversation. Now, we have been programmed. We've already discussed this in my previous segment, but we've been programmed both good and bad ways. Now, behind every substance, alcohol, gaming, drugs, there is an emotion that the person is doing their best to try to regulate. So let's just say a person has been exposed to trauma. And when they have an event in their life that changes our emotional state, the stronger the emotion we feel from the shock, the betrayal, the news, whatever it is, the more altered we are inside of us. Now, the brain freezes a frame and takes a snapshot of that. That's called long-term memories. We can remember, but we can remember because we can remember the feelings associated with them. Now, what most people don't know is the trauma or series of events alters our internal state, and every time we think or remember the trauma, we produce the same chemistry in the mind and body as if the event was actually occurring. Now, the body is very objective, that it does not know the difference between real life experiences that's creating the emotion, or the emotion is being fabricated by the thought alone. It only takes a thought and feeling, an image, emotion, stimulus, response, and you're actually conditioning the body subconsciously and in the emotionally state. And that's the baseline for all emotional states. So what does that all mean? There's a lot of information there. So when we have a trauma, basically our brain will take a snapshot of that and our emotion. And all we have to do is think about that trauma or emotion later on, and it triggers that response to where we're going to want to try to mask that. So they say I feel empty, unworthy, frustrated. So we look to the outside world to make that feeling go away. So that was the point I was trying to make there. Now we have different degrees of addiction. Some are very physiological. Sometimes the receptors can get modified. Now addiction is when the body has been conditioned to be the mind. So when the person feels the emptiness, anxiety, depression, their brain creates an image of what they need to make that feeling go away. Now, we have to self-regulate. We have to trade resentment, anxiety, frustrating for an elevated emotion. Now, our pleasures centers they've all been hijacked. You know, it's hard to find a pleasure just by a sunset or food, or just by a simple walk. Now you see kids now, they just look glazed over by technology, and that's one thing we're going to get in later on. With technology has just it has depleted all of us in a human capacity, to where it's hard for us to regulate our emotions now, because we're all just used to just scrolling and swiping and getting that quick dopamine hit. So we're going to get into next, we're going to get into the 5 different types of brain waves. But first, I want to touch a little bit on the learning. Now, when you start something new, learning should be very rewarding in itself. Now, if that's the emotion greater than, say, addiction, you're going to need to rewire your brain. You need to kind of start a new routine and get a reward system within that new routine, to where you're getting those dopamine hits, to where whatever you're learning is actually rewarding itself. Whether you're learning to make a new dish to eat, it can maybe take you 10 times to make that dish perfect. I know every time I try to cook panko chicken and I haven't cooked it in a while, I have to kind of figure out all the steps again. So, if you can master something new like pickleball or jujitsu or just any kind of running is good. Having a new activity, and learning the new activity is very rewarding. You can create a new reward system there, and you can create neurological pathways to the prefrontal cortex. And when you capture your attention, you actually capture your energy too as well. Like I said in my previous videos, I like to think we're just a ball of energy vibrating at different frequencies here. So that's a good way to think of it. But let's get into the different types of brain waves. And the brain, they're categorized by frequency. Now, this is very important because when you understand the different types of brain waves, you can go in and essentially learn how to fix those. Um, the delta state, that's your deep, that's the lowest. When you're in delta, your brain waves is in delta, you're in a deep sleep state. That one is categorized between zero point 0.5 and 4 hertz. That is very important for physical restoration. Deep sleep is very important for physical restoration. That's not REM sleep. That's not associated with rapid eye movement. That's where our dreams come from. And if you're a vivid, lucid dreamer like me, we're going to get into that later on. I believe our dreams are real, reality's wrong. But yeah, the REM sleep is very important too. And if you can actually remember your dreams, I highly encourage everyone to write your dreams down. If you can remember your dream the next day, write it down. Try to remember details. I know that I can actually dream a dream, and then I can actually enter that dream in three-dimensional space. It's happened countless times, probably over 100 times. If I can just kind of count off the top of my head, it's actually very cool when you can start, going between the dream state and the three-dimensional state. So yeah, the delta state is very, very important for physical restoration. Now we have a theta state. This is a brainwave theta. This is when you're drowsy. This is right actually before you're transitioning to sleep, but your brain is very creative there. If you pay attention to your thoughts when you're in theta, it's usually right before you go to sleep, and it's right when you wake up. Your brain is very creative there, and if you can remember your creativity, or if you can come up with new ideas while your brain is in theta, you can get new ideas, and the ideas can be crazy, but don't let those hold you back. You need crazy ideas. You need a dream in this world. So if your dreams don't scare you, you may need to rethink your dreams. Your dreams should probably scare you a little bit in a good way, not in a bad way. You need your dreams to scare you in a positive way, where it's like say I want $10 million. I say, no, Alan, you need $100 million, so to speak. So it changes your mindset. You're like, $100 million. Well, maybe I need $100 billion. So that's what I'm talking about. There is set astronomical goals. If you can get to theta and you get creative, try to set an astronomical goal. If you notice your brain in theta. And the theta frequency is between 4 and 8 hertz. Now we have the alpha state. Now the alpha is more of a relaxed wakefulness state, and that's more of a meditation state too. When you're in alpha, we're going to get to the other two states here, but most of us are operating in beta. But if you're in an alpha state, it's right below beta. And you're going to operate between 8 and 12 hertz there. And like I said, that's a meditative state. Your thoughts are very broad. Like you've widened your thoughts. You're not narrow focused on like the car, so to speak. You're focused on kind of the world. the waves coming in and out of the ocean, your breath, the birds chirping, the wind blowing. You're in your senses, so to speak. Now, moving on to the next type of brainwave, we have beta. Now, this is a very alertness and focused state. You're in a decision making state here when you're in beta. And this one operating on a frequency of 13 to 30 hertz. So when most of us operate in beta when throughout the day, after you wake up, you're in delta when you're sleeping. When you're coming out of sleep, you're going into theta. When you're in alpha, you're in a very, wakeful, relaxed state, like a meditative state. Most of us move into beta once we get out into the real world. And then we have the top brainwave frequency is called gamma. Now, this is a high level processing, learning, sensory processing wave. Now, the frequency on this one is greater than 30 hertz. Gamma is the highest level of processing. They call it maybe a flow state. When you get into that flow state of just being, and you're flowing, you're operating, things are just connecting, the right people are calling you. There's a level of processing there where you can produce at a high level. Surgeons and doctors can get into gamma state. I've been in a gamma state. It takes a lot to get there. You have to know how the brain waves work, and how to work up to gamma. So yeah, guys, I think that's pretty good to end there. I absolutely love Dr. Joe Dispenza. I wanted to touch on his philosophy on addiction. And like I said, he has coined the term epigenetics, which basically just means your thoughts are greater than your genetics. So the old belief system was your environment affected your genes, but actually your genes affect the environment. So if you were to say, like, move to another area of the world, your genes would actually be affected by your new environment. I hope I didn't butcher that, but I'll go do more research on that and make sure I said that correctly there. But yeah, just keep in mind, guys, the main challenge with addictions is you have to think greater than you feel. We feel a certain way. We want to drink. Maybe we're playing video games. We're getting that dopamine hit. We have to think greater than we're feeling here. So that's what I said previously. The only way out is in. The only way out is in. You have to meditate and go inside of your body to go out into the world and try to fix those problems in the physical flesh. And guys, when you meditate, if you've never meditated before, there's a lot of noise that happens in the beginning of meditation. When you first sit down, you're thinking, how am I going to meditate? Because you sit down and you start closing your eyes and you start breathing and picturing this, or picturing just maybe like a ball of light, as I like to picture. But there's a lot of noise. You're thinking about laundry, you're thinking about bills and this and that. But I like to try to work up to my meditation. Say I'm going to meditate I try to do it every day. It's very hard to do it every day, guys. I'm going to be honest with you. It's very, very hard to meditate every day because we're busy. Running a business, got a lot going on, I got a family. But what I like to do is work up to my meditation. So I'm going to say I'm going to meditate for 20 days. But I know those first 5, maybe 10 days are going to be a lot of noise. Like I got a lot of noise in my head. But on day like 11 to 15, or maybe like day 11 to 20, it's very profound because I have set an intention to work up to those moments. And then the distractions seem to kind of go away and I really get into it. I really try to focus on my breath too. You don't really want to try to think too much about things. Try to focus just on your breath. You're breathing in. I'm going to breathe in love, empathy. I'm going to release stress. You don't even have to say those things. You just breathe in like the ocean comes onto the shore, and then the ocean releases out into the ocean. The wave hits the shore, it releases into the ocean. If you can just picture that, 20 minutes, you're going to be good. You're going to find some very profound moments. You're going to connect to this quantum field that we're going we're going to get into later on about Newtonian physics and quantum physics. We're going to bridge those two into an everything theory that I've been working on. So our bodies are very, very powerful. You know, I like to think of them as stardust. You know, we have carbon in our blood. You know, the nitrogen in our blood, the carbon in our teeth. You know, all these things. So yeah, guys, love Dr. Joe Dispenza. You know, I can essentially just talk on this all day. But yeah, it's worthy of a conversation. So if you guys have any ideas on new topics, please drop them in the comments section. You know, I'd love to start building on all this stuff. I think next I'm going to touch more on Dr. Bruce Lipton. Love Dr. Bruce Lipton too. Him and Dr. Joe Dispenza, they're real good friends, they're colleagues. I'm trying to get all this information on paper and in my head so I can explain it correctly because, you know, it worked for me, but it's hard to kind of, you know, explain it sometimes. So I really appreciate, you know, all my fans out there giving me a like and a subscribe. You know, we're trying to build this content up and make it more professional for you guys and more streamlined. I want to make it where if you have an idea and you need to find it, you can go in and maybe have a thumbnail and quickly find that information so you can show it to a friend. Because I know I can just talk sometimes. So I want to be able to try to start organizing all my thoughts on a paper and getting all the information out, you know, in a pretty pretty cool way. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, love, and infinite waters. All right.